Everybody zoomed in.
Alrighty.
We're good?
Yep.
Take a week.
I'm on.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Virginia Harger, Chairperson of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. The day that the swallows are supposed to return to Capistrano. And the regular meeting of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission being conducted in Shelton City Hall and via Zoom is hereby called to order at 6:02 p.m. This meeting is also being carried live on YouTube. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. I'll start off with a roll call of the commission. Please verbally indicate you are present when your name is called. Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Commissioner Cristiano?
Present.
Commissioner Perkins?
Present.
Commissioner Motto?
Here.
Commissioner Tiki? Alternate Commissioner McGee?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Apple?
Here.
Is Commissioner Tiki in the waiting room or?
Yes.
Okay. Myself, Commissioner Harger. Ms. Castro, our Assistant Administrator.
Present.
Attorney Francis Teodoso, our Corporation Counsel.
I'm present.
Sarah Bernarsos, our Recording Secretary.
Present.
And Stephanie Charbonneau, our Stenographer.
Present.
And Commissioner Tiki.
Yes, I am here.
Thank you. Couple of points before continuing with today's agenda. Ms. Castro will act as the Zoom meeting host, while commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting. I ask that you please identify yourself before speaking and wait to be recognized so that we're not all speaking over each other, to make sure our recording secretary and stenographer are clear as to who is speaking. First agenda item is new business, application 2503, 118, 415 River Road for a sign, Orca's Family Cuts. There was a, this was a, come on, there was, this was on last week's agenda, and, come on, have a seat, ma'am. And we postponed, approval of it. So state yourself for the record.
I'm Marilyn Burgos.
Marilyn, could you spell your last name?
B as in boy, URGOS as in Sam.
Just turn the mic.
Okay. Yeah. Face that way. Yeah, good. Okay. All right, so you've opened up a business down on River Road, 415, Bridgeport River Road rather,
Yes,
for hair cutting and all that.
yes.
How did the sign get put up before approval?
I wasn't aware I needed approval.
Yeah, have you run a business before? Any place?
Salon Suites. So when
I-
I did come down, they, gave me all the list of everything that wasn't mentioned until my very last signature was placed. And she was like, oh, do you have a sign?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah. So
Ms.
I
Castro-
wasn't aware.
Who processed the application?
It was our CEO.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was
so they-
there any, do you have any confirmation about when the sign was mentioned as to the process
This
to?
was more of a last minute, I believe. She was only really in coordination with the health department,
Mhm.
and the health department doesn't know our protocol, so.
Yeah, when I called here originally, they
You
told
speak
me,
into the mic.
when I called originally to the
Speak
town.
into the mic. You gotta
Sorry.
get closer.
So when I called originally, oh, it's not on.
Yeah, it is up. It was on.
Oh, it was on?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. When I called originally, they told me to call the health department. So when I called the health department, it was just a lot of miscommunication between everything.
There might be something that's not connected, right?
Maybe you guys can share for a minute.
Yeah, it's just get close.
Get close.
Yeah, yeah.
There you
close
go.
to eat it. There you go.
Yes, it was a lot of miscommunication, but as soon as they told me, I went online and, they told me the sign is up already, just go and file for the permit.
Who's they you're referring to?
When I came here to get the last signatures,
Okay. And did the sign committee meet?
He met when I was in Egypt.
Oh, out of town, okay, so
Yeah.
Commissioners
We were-
Kelly and
we were
Perkins,
Fine with the sign, we're just questioning the bracketing.
The owner that didn't want me to touch the awning, so I specialize in kids. That's the safest thing, so and it won't fall down.
What is the
It's
bracket
attached
attached
to the
to?
building.
It's attached to the building,
Oh, to
yeah,
the building.
to the underneath the awning.
It's attached to the awning or to
Yeah.
the building?
So. I
is
guess
it like this? Here's the face of the sign in the
it's
bracket,
attached to the awning.
Yeah.
Underneath.
okay.
Yes.
But then it continues, does it look, it looks like.
No, it
continues to
lights
the
up.
buil-
I have, it can light up if I want it to light up, so they can see it at night.
Mhm. Ms. Castro, did Mr. Baya go down and look at this particular configuration?
We go after.
Roll,
After approval?
Yeah.
Okay,
so we'll check it out.
yeah, we could approve contingent on
That's
the
building
sign off.
with the installation,
Mm-hmm,
we're looking at size.
Right.
Were we aware it was a lit sign?
No, it's just LED lights. It could be unplugged if anything.
was it on there? Was that clear on the application that the sign was gonna be lit?
I did not see that, no.
Okay,
So I can check it off.
Yeah, I didn't see a button for
Alright.
LED.
so would it be a recommendation of the commission that the CEO go down to make sure that it's in conformity with everything and
Yeah, just want to make sure
contingent?
that it's not gonna fall off the awning and hit somebody in the head.
Well, yeah, that's
Yep.
why we bolted it,
It's
because
not the CEO building.
Okay,
We don't have that. Whoever.
Right.
Whoever,
Yes.
somebody's gotta check it.
but
Yeah,
staff,
It
I
is a
found-
building.
get in touch with Mr. Bolero.
we found that that would have been the
Okay.
safest for any kids trying, so it wouldn't fall. That was why it's bolted. Especially with winds and rains and all
Is
that.
there a flat panel under the awning?
Underneath the awning is all metal, so he screwed it right into the awning. on
So the metal and then the
It's
awning
like a
covers
bracket.
it?
So it's like an L bracket,
Mhm.
so it's
Oh, I can
30.
see the bracket on the
Yeah.
sign. I'm just talking about the underneath of the awning. Is
It's
that
open.
on a,
Well,
It's
yeah,
totally open.
it's totally
Totally
open,
open.
yeah, to the building.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, we'll take
probably
it
what you
forward, too.
have, you have.
And then there's lights underneath there, so he just took the.
You have-
it's hard to
the-
see because of the
You
shadow.
have a steel structure that holds the awning,
Yes,
and that's attached to the steel structure.
we just found that
And
the
the steel
safest.
structure's attached to
Mhm.
the building itself.
I'm not really familiar with-
I just found that we just figured we
Awnings.
wanted to be the safest for anyone, we don't want it to fall.
Okay,
And so how is the wire? It's LED lights.
Yeah, it has a little remote. I have the remote to it. It plugged into there's lights underneath that lights up at night. So at night when they automatically go on when it's dark.
So it's plugged in somewhere though, the
It's
light?
plugged into the light bulb. Like, I guess there's a little switch there.
outlet or something. Are there exposed wires running anywhere?
No, just
No.
the wire to put that up there.
So how, would the commission want to,
It's fine, just
Go
have
on
somebody
this.
go down and check it out.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Catch the awning on fire or anything like that.
Yeah.
all right, is there a motion to approve contingent on the Mr. Bolero, our building official, going down and signing off to make sure that everything is,
I'll make that
Safe.
change.
okay, so there is a motion from Commissioner Kelly to approve contingent on Mr. Bolero going down and signing off on this, and is there a second on that?
Commissioner Parkinson's second.
Okay,
Where'd you get the name from?
I used to work for Sharkies at Westport and Orcas eat sharks.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly. Yeah,
okay.
Orcas.
I knew there was a reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the motion made by Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Parkins, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Let the record show the motion is passed by a vote of 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
If there's any changes in your signage in the future, you must come back.
Now I
City
know.
Hall, okay?
I got you. Thank you so much.
There are requirements in our sign regs for window coverage, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
If you're not familiar with that, Ms. Council will be more than happy to go over it with you.
What do you mean by window coverage?
The amount of
curtain?
coverage you can do on
Things
the
you can
window.
put in your
Percent of
window.
of the.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Outside.
Exactly.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm all set.
yes.
Yep.
all right. Thank you very much. All right, next is,
Yeah, this is the wrong one. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, here we go.
Missing some. Leave that over there.
Oops, sorry. I got it off the internet this afternoon.
Perfect.
All right, so next is new business application 2503, 118 Armstrong Road, LLC. At 118 Armstrong Road, Assessors Map 19, Lot 10, seeking a text amendment proposing Section 38 Armstrong Affordable District and a site plan application to allow 40 residential units, with 12 units being restricted as affordable under Connecticut General Statutes 8-30G. Is there a motion to accept for review and for a public hearing to be set?
So move.
Commissioner Kelly has made that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion to second from Commissioner Motto. And on a roll call vote, Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Motto, Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Cristiano,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Motion has passed by a vote of 6-0, and staff will be looking at the schedule to set the public hearing. Moving on to our next agenda item is a public hearing for application 2430, Steve Bellis for Stephen Shapiro. Proposal to amend the Shelton Planning and Zoning Regulations by adding section 37, age restricted residential development. This is a continuation of the public hearing. Before we get into it, I just want to share the protocol we will be following. Staff will indicate if any written comments were received from the public no later than 24 hours before the start of this evening's meeting. If written comments were received, they will be read into the record. The applicant and/or its associates will make their presentation. The commission can ask questions during the presentation or at its conclusion. The applicant and/or associates can answer commission questions at the time they are presented or at the conclusion of the presentation. At the point in each public hearing, when the chair asks for public comment, we will begin with elected officials of the city present in the auditorium, followed by elected officials participating via Zoom or through a phone link. After elected officials conclude their comments, members of the public will be recognized, starting with those present in the auditorium, and then followed by those participating remotely via Zoom or through the phone link. Those in the auditorium will need to list their name on a speaker sheet. Those participating via Zoom will need to use Zoom's raise your hand feature, and those participating via phone will be recognized after dialing *9. After you are recognized, please state and spell your name and state your address to assist the recording secretary and stenographer when doing the minutes and transcript of the public hearing. Each speaker has 5 minutes to present comments, which should address specific criteria of the zoning regulations, the merits of the application, and be new information, not a repeat of comments presented by a previous speaker. Comments and questions should be directed to the commission, not to the applicant and/or his associates. Members of the public are expected to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. Disruptive attendees may be removed from verbally participating. The applicant's attorney and/or associates will be given the opportunity to address any comments or questions from the public after the last person from the public has been given the opportunity to speak. If the commission feels further information is needed from the applicant, the chair will ask for a motion to continue the public hearing. If a public hearing remains open, the commission is not allowed to make any public comment, discuss any part of the applicant's and/or his associate's presentation, or receive any additional information from anyone. If the commission feels the applicant and/or associates have answered all questions and have addressed all concerns from the commission and/or public, the public hearing will close. The commission reserves the right to discuss the application at the close of the public hearing or to schedule a discussion at an upcoming commission meeting. So application 2430 was accepted for review on November 13th, 2024. On January 15th, 2025, the public hearing opened was continued per request of the applicant, as Attorney Bellis had a conflict with appearing before another zoning commission. On January 22nd, the applicant presented the proposal and the public hearing was continued. On February 5th, the commission accepted an extension letter from the applicant. On February 19th, the public hearing continued, but was postponed as the applicant's paperwork contained a reference to a zoning section that did not exist in the Shelton P&Z regulations. On March 12th, the applicant requested another extension, which the commission granted with the restriction that no further extensions would be granted, and if the applicant was not ready to present this evening, the commission will require the application to be withdrawn. Posted to the city's website is the application, a conceptual plan, a statement from the applicant about an overlay zone, the original and revised proposed text change, a map prepared by the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments showing the roadways stated in the text change and the adjacent neighborhoods that would be affected, a list of properties, addresses of specific properties that would be affected, and 2 GIS maps with those properties marked. 2 extension letters and opinion from attorney Jason McCoy about this application, and correspondence from 6 residents. Ms. Castro, any other reports, materials, or correspondence received within the time period for this application, but not yet posted to the city's website that we need to acknowledge for the record?
No.
Okay, so I see the applicant is present. Please identify yourself for the record, Attorney Bellis, and proceed.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm attorney Stephen Bellis. I'm with the Pellegrino Law Firm. I live in Shelton and my law firm's in New Haven. Let me just go back a little bit, and then I think it will help put everything into context. So my client initially had come before this commission proposing a PDD on 118 Armstrong. I think it was called Blossom Ridge. It was for 40 units. I think he was represented by attorney Dominic Thomas. And after some hearings, it is my understanding that application was withdrawn. It has now been, that same application has been substituted as an 830G. I am not representing the client on the 830G. He may be represented, my understanding, may be attorney Chris Russo, but it's the same application as was the PDD. His client came to me and said, can I do something other than an 830G or a PDD, because that wasn't going so well. And I said to him that I would suggest perhaps entertaining a text amendment for the town of Shelton for age-restricted homes. I did it in other towns. I think Trumbull may have just passed one a month or so ago. And so I set up a meeting with the work session with, I think it was Attorney Harger and Attorney Parkins, Commissioner, I apologize. I made you guys lawyers. My fault. Oh. Let me start again. So we had a tech session with Commissioner Parkins and Commissioner Harger. And at that work session, I think there was some reception, at least I understood, that this may be a good thing for the town. And would I perhaps expand it to not just the 2 properties that my client owns, one on 395 Shelton Avenue and the other on 118 Armstrong, but perhaps to other parts of the town. So initially I proposed larger parcels, maybe even up to 7 acres along the major roadways, 110, 108, I can't remember them all, but that was my initial proposal. Came back to this commission, and my proposal, in my opinion, was not well received. The feedback that I got from listening to the commissioners was, no, this is too expansive. It takes on too many properties. It changes the character of the town. I heard you loud and clear. So I went back and I said, okay, we gave it a shot, but that's not what they want. So now this new proposal is much more limited. It is only between properties that are 1.5 to 2.5 acres. It's only in an R1 zone, and it's only in 2 specific locations, south of or east of Route 8 and near Old Stratford Road, and on Shelton Avenue between the Huntington Green down to Nels Rock Road. So the commission said to me, how many properties are involved? So I did a GIS search and found that for both the 118 Armstrong area and the Shelton Avenue, there were 12 properties that could be affected by the overlay zone. And I listed them and I gave you a map. So I should point out that on all 12 of those parcels that I looked at, each and every one of them has a house. So in my opinion, as a developer, not likely too many people are going to take advantage of this program, but I'm not suggesting that they can't. But you're gonna have to pay for that piece of property, those 12 piece of properties, you're gonna have to pay the value of what's on, the house at least, or the homeowner can do it himself. Notwithstanding that, the application was then heard, and I got a letter from an attorney, I think the night I came to a hearing, and you asked me to take a look at it, tell you what my thoughts were. I guess most of it I have a little bit of a problem with because the lawyer is referring to the old 830G statute in his letter. 830G came around in 1990, but it's been amended several times. So there's a lot of mention in his letter about 830G, and unfortunately, it's relying on the old statute, not the modified or new one.
Bellis, is that the February 5th letter? Attorney
Yeah.
McCoy?
So I don't know that that's helpful if you're not looking at the right statute. So I disagree with parts of it. Parts of it are okay, I guess. But the main crux of it is he's not understanding that I am not filing an 830G application. When you file an 830G application, you have to do, all the things that 830G requires you to file, affordability plan, blah, blah, blah. Mine is a straight old text amendment. And in the text amendment, what I did was I simply took requirements that anyone who's going to want to use this text amendment, it's an overlay zone. So it floats over the particular area that I'm talking about. And if one wants to use it, then it could land on their property, provided it's between 1.5 and 2.5 acres, provided it's an R1, and provided that it's in the area that we've described it, be allowed to be used. Then that person would have to submit a special exception. And the special exception that I cited is our special exception, whereby you file a site plan, you do the drainage, the things you're all familiar with, a site plan, soil and erosion plan. I think I put in a lighting plan. I have building standards, setbacks, and all those sorts of things that you're all familiar with. And then this commission would look at that plan and you would vote on it. And if it, for any reason, violated safety and health, you could put conditions of approval, you could deny it, you could do what you want. All I'm drafting is a text amendment. It's like another zoning regulation that you put in your book for use as an age-restricted purposes. So in this age-restricted overlay zone, if it were to land, the person using it would have to have some requirements. And those requirements are such things as you would have to have a road that would be privately maintained with a homeowners association. You would have to have driveways that are at least 12 feet leading up to single family homes. There would be no apartments. They would be in the style of either attached townhouses, no more than 2, or single family residents. So just to give you a rough idea, this is not a plan. I'm not submitting it. It's a conceptual drawing. I gave you an idea on 118 Armstrong, which is like 2.1 acres. Again, the max, I changed the maximum. The maximum amount used could be 10. So no matter who the applicant is, how much land, whether it's 1.5 to 2.5 acres, you can't have more than 10 units. The commission may feel that it should be 10 or less. It depends on the site plan that's submitted. But I just gave you an idea that on 118 Armstrong, you could easily put 10 single family homes or 9 or whatever I have there, plus the existing one on the 2 acres. And it would look like a small single family home residential development. But again, that's conceptual, so I don't want you to get too confused. Again, if you use this particular overlay zone, I put in a few requirements. One of the requirements I put in is that they would be de-restricted as what we call elderly units. I got that definition from our Connecticut state statutes, and also it's also defined by federal statute as well. But basically, age-restricted units means dwelling units that are occupied, not owned, occupied by people that are 55 or older. And elderly units are required to have a deed restriction on the land records as elderly units, and I had it running with the land for 40 years. I looked at the affordability plan that you all passed, and I'll go through that in a minute. And I added, after 2023, town enacted an affordability plan where they recommended 10% of these types developments be deeded as affordable. And under my text amendment, I have that in there as an affordable. And under your affordability plan, it says that you wanted your deed restrictions since 2023 to be on the land records for 40 years. So that's in the text amendment. So when you pass a text amendment, and we've done quite a few of them, and so you're probably familiar with them. But the standard, as Fran will tell you, is to look at your plan of development and see if the text amendment is consistent with the plan of development or not consistent with the plan of development. So I went through the original 2006 plan of development, and then you updated it in 2017. And so I gave you a statement of why I believe it is consistent. The 2006 POD says we should encourage active adult and elderly housing when appropriate based on water and sewer availability. That's in the POD, pages 6 through 11.
Attorney Bellis, let me just stop you for a minute. So that 4-page document, those are snippets from the Plan of Conservation and Development? Because I noticed, like on.
So, yeah, so my statement of overlay, yeah. So I took, that's a snippet, is correct, of both the 2006 and the 2017 and the affordability plan. So the plan of development says eliminate PDDs in residential districts. That's one of your goals. So this would do that. Continue to provide for income diverse housing. This would be income diverse in that you'll have age restricted. So theoretically, people 55 and older don't have many children that are school age. So it's not impacting on the school system, yet they are still paying the same amount of taxes as anybody else. So that is consistent. And again, it says encourage encourage age restricted, encourage active adult and elderly housing, and consider using a small percentage, 10%, as affordable. So I've done all that. I also gave you the affordable a snippet, page 26, and it says offer greater housing variety for seniors. That's right in your affordability plan. They talk about ages 55 and older, blah, blah, blah. So this particular text amendment is spot on with the plan of development and is consistent with it, both in 2006, 2017, and I've also included the most recent 2023 affordability plan to show you all that this could be something that may be useful as a tool in lieu of someone filing an 830G application. So you say, Steve, well, what's the difference? Like, why don't they just file the 830G? Well, you all know that on an 830G application, there are no limitations on density. The Supreme Court has basically, or maybe it's the appellate court, has basically said, hey, if the developer needs so many units, based to give so many affordable units, that's how they come up with the ratio of market rate versus affordable. So you have no say in that. This gives you say in that it's limited to 10 and can be less, obviously, but it's a maximum of 10 units that one could propose under this text amendment. So I call it a tool in the toolbox. And listen, I'm not suggesting I invented the wheel here in Shelton on this particular age restricted thing. As I said, they do the exact same thing in other towns. A developer comes in and wants to propose even like an apartment building, and they say, well, we rather have it as an age-restricted apartment building than an 830G apartment building. So they enact a text amendment for an age-restricted zone. Here, there's no apartment buildings being proposed. These are going to be single-family, either townhouses or attached townhouse, 2 units attached, or single-family homes. No apartment buildings.
Are you, then comparing this to something like Owl Hill? Where it's cluster housing?
Yeah, Owl Hill was a while ago. That was one of our
Those are
first.
Single.
Yeah, single family. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I would say it would be very, very similar cluster development. So you get more density. I think Owl Hill is a private road, right? No? I think there's a homeowners association, be very similar to that. That's a good analogy.
Because in Owl Hill, they kept
But you
about
got-
half the property for open space.
I'm just talking about the style,
Oh, that, yeah,
the layout, that kind
They
of.
can't have it for what, Commissioner Mono?
open space.
Open space, yeah. This, with my proposal, yeah, I think that's a good point. Owl Hill had a lot more land. My proposal is only for 1.5 to 2.5 acres, so there really wouldn't be any, for all intents and purposes, open space. That would not be the component that would be beneficial to the town. There's just not enough room. Yeah.
A cluster zone type of.
I think you're correct. That was more of an open space, yeah.
So I know you're not submitting a particular plan. but
No.
Are you talking about some kind of market rate for these?
So yes, these would be all market rate except for the 1 unit. So what I mean by that,
Right, but you have an idea of what kind of, I mean, they're just gonna be very expensive. Are they gonna
yeah,
be
I'll have my
very-
client after I speak, answer your question, Commissioner Amato, because I don't want to speak to that.
Yeah.
But it's a very good question. The only thing that I can say is that if, and that's an if 10 of them were approved, 1 would be affordable and 9 would be market rate. But they're all would be restricted to people 55 and older. Okay. I'll let him answer that when I'm done. He can do it through Zoom.
You all maintained, like the outside properties would be maintained by the individuals, owners, or by? an
Well, that's a good
association?
point. Sometimes developers do it 2 different ways for the homeowners associations that I've seen. Some of them have it more in a condominium style so that the exteriors are all the same and it's maintained with a roof by the association and the siding by the association. I have also seen, although less frequently, where the person owns the land underneath his unit and that's it. And so they actually own the structure. So I don't know, that would probably be dictated in what we call the homeowners association documents. But you know, that's why I said this is a special exception. So these kinds of questions would come up when the person submitted his site plans. And you as a commission may say, as I said, you have in a special permit or special exception, the commission has more sway in recommending either conditions of approval, such as what you're just talking about, landscaping, those sorts of things. In a site plan approval, as you all know, you have no say. If the site plan matches the text amendment, you might as well just take a rubber stamp and say approved, because there's nothing you all could do about it. So I did not propose this be a site plan review. This is a special exception. If someone were to come in with this text amendment. I listed the properties that were affected. The lawyer thought that I was listing the addresses in the text amendment. I'm not. That was a response to the commission saying, hey, what properties does this involve? And I did want to make it clear to these homeowners, and some of them may be here with me tonight, that an overlay zone is allowed by our state statute, but they don't have to land. They can float up there forever. And the property then would still remain R1. There's no encumbrance on the property at all. However, if someone wanted to invoke the text amendment, they'd have to come to before you and do all the things that are required in the text amendment. And you can say whether it fits within a text amendment or it doesn't. If someone comes in with a 3-acre parcel and wants to put 30 units, you're going to say that doesn't fit the text amendment. I'm sorry, it's denied. So it gives the commission a lot of flexibility. I think that's the reason that when I first approached the work session, it was kind of well received because the town gets tax revenue. It doesn't get any burden of the school children. And I think that there's a strong need in this town for housing that is for 55 and olders. That's not rental of an apartment. You know, it's more of a single family type home. So,
So what you're proposing is twofold. We have age restricted housing and also one unit that would be an affordable rate.
that's in the text amendment, yes. Yeah, I put that one unit in there because I read your 2023 affordability plan, and it says right in there, if you can give 10%, 10% of 10 units is one unit, so that's why I put it.
I asked this question of other developers and I still haven't gotten an answer.
Go ahead.
So with A30G, especially, well, with apartments anyway.
Yeah.
The apartments that are designated as affordable are not supposed to be distinguishable from any other apartments. They're
That's
supposed to
correct.
just be, and if one is filled and they can be,
They go to F2.
right, they look up to. How is that handled in a development such as this, where there's only one house? How does it remain anonymous that is the affordable unit?
I think you're getting mixed up with the word anonymous, which is not a requirement in the statute. There is no anonymity. In fact, on an affordable unit, you have to record a deed restriction. So anyone who does a title search would know. So there's no, yeah, I think you're thinking of, and I understand what you're saying, is a developer is not allowed to make his affordable units any different looking than the non-affordable. So you can't have, and I'll make this an egregious situation, you can't have in an apartment building, the market rate units with granite countertops, and the affordable unit is going to have laminate and be in the basement, and the affordable units looking over a dumpster, and the market rates are all on the top floor. So
But that's what makes it sort of
but
anonymous.
it's not anonymous. That's a bad word. Anonymous has a connotation that the owner that's in there, the renter that's in there, he will have to supply, as you well know, the information to make himself qualified as affordable. And on the land records, it doesn't have that person's name. I agree with you, but
But there is an element.
I think the intention is so that people won't be stigmatized.
Right,
in any way.
exactly.
right?
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
no, I think the purpose actually was, I really think the purpose was that those people should have the same quality of workmanship in their units as the market rate. That was the purpose of it. So you can't have, well, I mean, how can I say this? You can't have in my text amendment 9 beautiful colonials and one little stinky teeny weeny ranch and say, oh, there's the affordable unit. Yeah, I think that's the whole purpose. So all 10 units would look this.
Units are sold.
Yeah, and so what would it be? Would the price be based on, what would the price of that be based on? Like the market rate for the,
So you talk about the affordable unit?
80%.
yeah,
But yeah, so I don't know how much you know about the whole affordability statute. There's a particular, no, it's complicated. I'm not belittling anybody. It took me a long time to realize it.
we know more about it.
You know more now. Okay. So basically the state dictates to you as a developer what it is you could charge. And it's based on some formula they have. And Alex used to hand it out to the developers. There's a chart that you can fill out.
Housing plan.
Yeah, part of the plan. And you can put in pretty close, what is your utility bill? What's this, that, and the other thing, and you figure it out. And it gives you a price. So both on the rentals and the purchases, there is a formula, let me just put it that way, that the state gives us, and you just plug it in. So if in this particular text amendment, it's 80% of AMI. AMI means the average median income, but that only tells you half half the equation. That means that no person can, in our town, the AMI's ballpark, it's like 120. Let's just call it 100 to make life easy. So if someone were making $80,000, they would be qualified to live there. But that doesn't tell you how much the developer's allowed to charge. You still have to use that chart. So look at it. I could give you an answer, but I don't know. It depends.
So if someone.
It's less than the market rate.
55 purchases that unit that's being designated, that's being deeded, being restricted as affordable.
Yeah.
They get to get that reduced rate, correct?
Yes.
They can only rent it out to somebody that's 55 and older.
Yes.
So they rent it out to somebody 55 and older. Are they restricted that they can only rent it out at the 80% AMI?
Yes.
That person that's going to be living there.
Yes.
How is it that if you're proposing an age-restricted development, that someone who is below 55 is permitted to buy a unit?
Because you said it was occupation, not.
No.
It's who occupies it, not who owns it.
Occupation, not ownership. Okay,
Chairman, I have a question.
go right ahead.
That's a good follow. I know what the follow-up is going to be.
I have a whole different question.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
So you've got your 10 houses, you've got your 9 colonials and the ranch.
No, you can't do that.
No, but is the developer in your mind building all 10 houses?
Yes.
Or is this someone coming in and saying, I want this kind of house, I want that kind of house?
Yeah, generally,
You're gonna take 10 exact units and drop them on a piece of property and hope to sell them that way?
yeah, generally speaking, they would be, since it's a small development, they would be the same. I agree if it were maybe perhaps, I'm thinking of like, I'm doing one in Beacon Falls, there's like 96. They would not all be the same. There's just too many units. You would have some variety, but with 10, it would not look bad.
In your-
Commissioner Apple, unless you're seated technically, would have to ask your question through one of the
Okay, so I'll ask
commissioners,
you.
okay?
Yeah, I don't mind answering this question.
No, but it's
Can you
protocol.
ask him
Oh.
if water and sewer are requirements in his text amendment?
Yes, they are. I could read your mind, Commissioner Harger.
Yeah, let's not go there. Water and sewer required?
Yes, they are. It's in the text amendment.
Are they in the area?
Yeah, so, on 118 Armstrong, I went to the WPCA and there would have to be an extension. One would have to extend the line, up Armstrong Road. So to answer your question, it's not directly in front now, but you couldn't come in with your special exception unless you had WPCA approval.
Right, but,
For sewer, and you would also need the Aquarian water line.
so we're going to be Shelton.
That would be a Shelton.
Stratford.
Yeah, no, that's a Shelton one. Yeah. Both would be Shelton.
Mhm.
Both on Shelton Ave and on Armstrong. I'm sorry.
First of all, I just wanted to comment on your opening remarks about the work session. As you well know, you've been before this commission many times. When some folks come in, or anyone comes in for a text amendment, we have to be sure that it's applicable to other properties. Because
Yes.
otherwise, as you know, it's spot zoning.
I agree with you.
So we can't do that.
Yeah.
So ask for, make sure that if there's a benefit,
Yeah.
right? A benefit that it's not actually going to be a detriment, end up being a detriment to the city.
I understand
So
that.
that's why, we usually ask all folks that are coming in for any kind of text amendment to map out for us how many properties in Shelton this could possibly impact, so
I
that
don't
we
have a
can
problem
see
with that.
what kind of impact it's going to actually have. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah.
When we said.
I have
that
no
we were
problem with that.
interested, I think we inferred that we were definitely interested in over 55 because that's something that this town is really lacking.
Yeah.
But it didn't that we were in favor of your particular text amendment because there was not enough information to be had. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, no,
Err on that.
no, I get it. Listen, a tech session is some give and take, so we get some feedback. And either I misinterpreted the enthusiasm for the 55 and older and put it too much all over town, as you're nodding, maybe I did. So that's why I've scaled it back.
Okay, now I have questions on presented, right now, I believe I'm reading the amended revised text amendment that says that the density, the total number of residential homes shall not exceed 7 units.
No, that's the old, that's not the new one.
That's what's up there.
I think it looks,
I don't think that's correct, Commissioner.
else it would help if you date these somewhere on the bottom.
Oh, you're getting like a teacher now.
Size 21125. That's the right.
I don't know if, Alexander, do you know what date I submitted it? Yeah, that, I think that was an earlier version, Commissioner Parker.
When you say what do you refer to, buildings?
Yeah.
Or if you have a
Dwelling units.
house. Yeah.
Yeah, and then,
One building, or is that two units?
yeah, because there's some confusion, I revised it to say allowed uses, residential townhouse or single family style. I got rid of the word units, single family style.
Is that
So it would be a single townhouse.
Yeah.
Not a duplex.
No, I mean, you can't get past 10. So if you took two, that you've burned two of them, right?
Can't get past 10 units.
Can't get past 10 total. Yeah. Not 10 buildings. 10 dwelling units. Yeah, yeah.
How would you purchase? 80% unit. In other words. Some sort of a system with that.
Yeah, so the commission may be becoming familiar with this or not. That when you have an affordable project, and this is not an affordable project, there's an administrator that you have to appoint to overlook the person's income, to make sure that the person's over 55, to make sure that you're renting it at the right rental rate. So on that one unit, there would have to be an administrator. Generally, yeah, yes. In some towns, we have preferences made for people that live in town. And it's kind of like a lottery, you know, and then, if you can't get anyone from town, then you can go outside of town but yes, it's a lottery.
Itself, it would be an open concept, no fence.
Open concept. Yeah, there's no lot lines between these homes.
Right.
It's, that's why I said it's more of a condo or homeowners association that takes care of the private road, takes care of any on-site galley systems for storm drainage, grass, plowing, all that kind of stuff would have to be maintained by a homeowners association.
That's gonna seem quite expensive though, if you know, say you have an acre and a half, you have 10 units. That's gonna be expensive.
For the homeowners?
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Divided by.
I remember in that situation.
Yeah, and most homeowner association, if it's an over 55, the HOA is going to monitor to make sure that people there that are living there,
I agree.
but also most over 55 allow someone younger than 55 to be living there as long as the main occupant is 55. So there is a little.
Yeah, I mean,
And assume that the people that are living bought into and over 55 are going to ensure that it's maintained as.
yeah, I think,
But the document has to be clearly.
and again, I think when we get to, if there's a special exception filed, I think that you could make that a condition of approval. Somehow enforcing that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if a spouse dies, yeah.
Commissioner Dickey, go ahead.
I can't, I can't hear him.
No, I don't. Commissioner Ticky doesn't have a question.
Okay. All right. All right, any other?
Just say, like, it's more, it twists my brain a little more thinking about people selling these at an affordable rate. You know, not whoever owns that.
That one unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I think that, the person buying it, or in this case, maybe an investor, right? I don't know. Might be an investor, I don't know. Yeah, the person that he knows, no, the owner doesn't have to occupy it.
Tenant has to be, the occupant has.
So
to
the
be.
person selling it would say, okay, I can only get this much rent because it's an affordable unit.
You're gonna pay,
So the price would probably be less, right?
if you sell one of the units,
It's still, it's
Would-
still,
it would be 80% of what the price of the unit goes for at the time of selling? Or what you paid for it initially?
The affordable was. No, it's occupied by a person whose income is equal to or less than 80% of the average median income, and deed restricted for 40 years.
Yeah, but what is, I mean, deed restricts means it's 80% for 40 years. But if you bought it, say, for 300,000 and you kept it for 10 or 20 years and it's 500,000, the going price is 500,000 for that homes in that cluster. Now, is it still selling at purchase price when it was initially 300, or it
Whenever
goes
the
up?
rates are.
It goes up to the
It
rate.
goes up, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Oh, I forgot to say, you get a half a point. Big deal, right? But town gets a half a point according to
You
state.
know, you could take a snippet of the 830G that pertains to the buying and selling of an affordable unit.
I wish they were that clever in writing them. Have you seen the statute? It's not well written. And the regulations aren't helpful either. I'm not avoiding it, it just doesn't say it.
Quite confident that there's been a buying and selling of an affordable unit prior to this commission approving one.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's gotta be a protocol
Sure,
or something.
we don't need to spend any more time on
Okay,
discussing. buying and selling.
yeah.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns from the commission?
I could have my client answer Commissioner Amato's question.
Identify him.
Well, I can't. I think Alexandria has to let him in.
Give it a second to load.
Hello,
Go ahead, Mr. Shapiro. Identify yourself for the record. Your address, please.
Stephen Shapiro, 20 Virginia Drive, Chairman Hager, and the rest of the commissioners. Thank you for your time. I won't be redundant to a lot of the stuff Attorney Bellis has spoken about already. Our housing stock is last in the country. We're down 77% since COVID. We're dead last out of all 50 states. We know this is age restricted, which is good. It lowers the taxes. There's no school kids, etc. When an older person moves into one of these units, they are freeing up other housing for younger people to buy, which is a huge problem in the state. I'm working on middle housing statewide. I have passed a DRD regulation in the last month in Fairfield. I have passed a workforce housing regulation in Stratford. I'm not saying Shelton is Stratford or Fairfield, but they are neighboring communities that are similar in size to Shelton. Middle housing is a good thing if we can provide a little bit of affordability, if we can provide some common sense, nothing too dense, something reasonable, something for our old people that have served our communities for a long time to live in. The commission, again, I know Attorney Bellis has stated this, has full control over any application in this zone. It's via special permit. If you don't like a particular site that comes in under this, you have the full discretion to deny it. The town's in total control, not the state, not anything else. The zoning board of Shelton is in control of this. We feel it's very reasonable. We feel it has a lot of common sense behind it. And I'm happy to answer any questions any commissioners have.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay,
For the chair, ma'am,
go ahead.
both you and the attorney have said that you're gonna have no children. How are you gonna limit that?
Anybody that occupies the unit has to be 55 or older.
That doesn't mean they don't have children.
You're absolutely correct, Mr. Apple. They could have children.
So it's not no children.
It's not, no, that's against the law, no children. I came to Shelton and lived in Stevens Terrace condominium, and it was no children and no dogs. And the Supreme Court has since ruled that the dog part's okay, but the no children part is against the Constitution. What I was suggesting, if I said that, then I'm wrong. I misspoke. What I suggested was that most people that are over 55 do not have school-age children. That's just a statistic, but it's not necessarily 100%. There could be people 55 that have 5 kids. It could happen.
Very unlikely, though.
Yeah, unlikely.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns for the applicant? All right, then we'll open it up for the members of the public. If there are any elected officials of the city of Shelton in the auditorium that would like to speak on this application, please raise your hand.
Do people know that they sign up for it?
Amen. Okay, and if there are any elected officials that are participating remotely, if you would like to participate and make comments on this particular application, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature, dial *9.
No elected official.
Okay, so there are, we'll go to members of the public. If you wish to comment on this application, we have 2 people signed up so far. Come on up to the table and put your name and address down.
It may be signed up for the vote. It looks like.
Hold on a minute.
Mhm.
And in the meantime, we will start with people in the auditorium. Anyone that is participating remotely, if you are interested in commenting on this after the members of the public who are here in the auditorium, you should use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And just like to remind everyone that's going to be coming up to the table here, there is not a specific proposal on the table showing any kind of number of units or whatever. There is a sketch that was incorporated, but there is not an application for X number of units, X number of buildings. These are the setbacks. This is where they're positioned. Keep in mind, the comments that you make have to do with the language in this proposed text amendment. Okay? So the first one is Fred Balmer at 391 Shelton Avenue. Come on up, sir. Have a seat. And then you state your name for the record.
Right.
And you've got 5 minutes.
This on,
It should be, just get real close.
Yeah.
like that?
That's better, yep.
Okay. My name is Fred Barmer, Barmmer. I've lived at 391 Shelton Avenue for 57 years. My property is across the street from the affordable housing proposal at 390 Shelton Avenue.
and adjacent to one of the 12 properties that are targeted on this proposal. So I'm getting hit from in front of my property and adjacent to my property. I've raised my three children there. And most people I have talked to have a negative view of the Planning and Zoning Commission. They believe it's run by the developers and it's a rubber stamp for the mayor. And this is an example of why they think that way. This proposal targets 12 lots in Shelton. This is a major and far-reaching zone change. The specifications of this zone change have been written and customized by the developers to fit their specific needs. The developers own 2 of the 12 properties listed on the proposal. A previous application on one had been withdrawn and was unable to densely pack 42 condos on 2.1 acres in a PDD. Now a new approach, change the regulations. What does it take to preserve the R1 zones? This appears to be some backdoor approach with some affordable housing attachment to gain, again, forced development of small parcels of R1 properties with dense housing. This proposal alerts developers that these targeted areas could be densely developed and offer existing owners exorbitant offers contingent on the approval of an AARD. Although they say an AARD has nothing to do, it's not an affordable project, it's titled Affordable Age Restricted District. I'm shocked too that the 12 targeted homes in the proposed zone to the R1 zone have not been notified of this pending change that affects their property and the adjacent properties. I have spoken to some of the homeowners that are targeted homes and adjacent homes, and they had no clue as to what was going on behind the scenes. Although we have no obligation to notify these taxpayers, common courtesy and common sense would be to notify the homeowners of this far-reaching proposal that is a revision to their property. I'm also disturbed that the developers now run the city and the P&Z are simply a rubber stamp for them. How can you allow the developers to write the text edition targeted to these 12 properties when 2 of the developers own the properties and their specific setbacks and requirements to benefit themselves? I was wondering if anyone can submit a text amendment proposal. Can I get 5 houses together and submit a text amendment saying that you cannot develop on my 12 pieces of property? I thought that's what an R1 zone was supposed to do, is protect the properties. There's many unanswered questions. Excuse me. The proposed text addition is pretty vague. Even though Attorney Wallace waffled about the owner or tenant needs to be 55, there's still a question as if they rent the apartments, how do you control the 55 age? And if there's an existing dwelling on the property, is that included in the 55 restrictions? Is that included in the 55 overlay? And if so, how do you control the amount of property that particular dwelling is allotted to the overall lay?
Mr. Bomber, I'm sorry. Can Can you wrap it up? Because you're over the 5 minutes that we have.
Can I finish my,
Yeah, are you close?
well,
Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
getting there,
All right.
right? I can't talk any faster.
I understand.
The taxpayers of Shelton are being bullied by the developers. Attorney Barless stated it's just another tool in the PZ's toolbox, when in fact it's not a tool, it's a weapon, coupled with attachment to affordable housing credits to be used against R1 zones. Is this what Shelton landowners want? It's another, if I don't get what I want, I'll file for affordable age restricted residential district. That's not what we want. The following addresses have been targeted for this dense development: 357 Shelton Avenue, 369 Shelton Avenue, 376 Shelton Avenue, 395 Shelton Avenue, owned by a developer, 48 Armstrong Road, 51 Armstrong Road, 118 Armstrong Road, owned by a developer, 128 Armstrong Road, 1 James Farms Road, and 5 James Farms Road. I have 6 major concerns. The first is the destruction of the R1 zone and unfair targeting of specific lots. The proposed change would dismantle established R1 zoning protections, allowing for dense housing in areas historically designed for single-family homes. This shift disregards the long-term planning and stability that zoning laws were meant to provide. Furthermore, the proposal affects only 12 targeted lots, 2 of which are owned by the very developers seeking the change. A zoning regulation should serve the interests of the entire community, not benefit a single applicant. The selective application of zoning changes raises concern about spot zoning, which is both unfair and legally questionable. The second one is the excessive housing density on small plots of land. The proposed change would allow up to 7 dwellings per acre, although that has been changed to 10, but on an acre and a half, 7 per acre and a half acre comes about out to 10. So that has not changed very much. A drastic increase from the current zoning regulations that require 1 dwelling per acre. This level of density is inappropriate for the affected lots and would lead to overcrowding, loss of green space, and an increase in impervious surfaces, contributed to drainage and environmental concerns. 3, the traffic congestion. The increase in residential density will result in more vehicles on already strained roadways, creating traffic congestion and safety hazards. Additionally, most lots affected were not designed to accommodate this level of development, leading to on-street congestion. Number 4, strain on local infrastructure and public services. Higher population density will overwhelm emergency service, water and sewer systems, and public utilities. Excuse me. Many of these systems are already at or near capacity, and additional housing requires costly upgrades, placing the financial burden on the taxpayer. 5, negative impact on property values and community character. Residents purchase their homes based on existing zoning protections. If this proposal is approved, it will erode property values, disrupt the character of our community, and diminish the quality of life for long-term residents, allowing dense development on a selected few small lots, ignoring the interests of the broader community. 6, noise, privacy, and environmental concerns. The proposed increase in housing density will lead to higher noise levels, reduced privacy and loss of green space, directly impacting neighboring properties. In addition, high-density development can contribute to environmental strain, including increased stormwater runoff and reduced air quality. My request is that I urge zoning board to reject the proposed zoning regulations change in 24-30. The targeted nature of this change benefits a single applicant while disregarding the long-term interests of the broader community. I call for the preservation of R1 zoning protections to maintain the character of our neighborhood. A halt to zoning changes that unfairly benefit selected property owners at the expense of the community. A comprehensive impact study to assess how this proposal will affect infrastructure, school, traffic, and the environment. Most community inputs and considerations for alternative solutions that support responsible growth while sacrificing existing residents' quality of life. You are the custodians of the Shelton land. Do what is right. Vote against this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. All right, next is, ladies and gentlemen in the audience. Bob Quinn. State your name for the record and your address.
My name is, excuse my voice, I have some allergies going. My name is
okay.
Bob Quinn, 445 Shelton Avenue. And Fred has laid it out pretty well. I mean, there's no way I'm going to take up the time that he did. And there's no way I could cover all the points. I'd just like to make a few points. I've lived there for 38 years now. Came up from Bridgeport, bought a house with 1.25 acres, and I thought I had landed in the Ponderosa. It was great. I've noticed some changes in Shelton Avenue over the years, the amount of traffic. I've had my property, my stone wall, hit 3 times, 2 of them involving police investigations. Lost a dog in front of the house. It sometimes takes me a minute to a minute and a half now at certain times of the day to exit my driveway. And I just would urge that the commission retain the R1 rating for that area. It's an area of modest one-family homes. When I walk out my door, I prefer not to look to my right because one of the proposed properties is right next door to mine and see cluster housing. I think it would lower my property values. And I really don't think I'd live on a curb and the abutting property comes out of a curb. And I really don't think, although by this white hair, you can tell I have nothing against elderly people, but for them to exit the driveway on Shelton Avenue with all that traffic on a curve, I just think would be a hazard. I don't think it's the right area. I don't think it's the right move to change the zoning. And I would ask the commission to consider that and reject any overlay provision, which I really don't understand, but perhaps we can get into that. But I think any change of zoning or any change of conditions there are totally inadvisable. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quinn.
You're welcome.
All right, next on the list is Jay Gulick. Good evening.
Hey. My name is Jay. Last name is Gulick, 365 Shelton Avenue. First, I have a question. And that is, how close are we to any kind of a decision on this? Are there going to be more meetings like this to go over the facts and figures of this zoning change?
The protocol, Mr. Gulick, is that we have the public hearing. If we need more information, then we can ask that the public hearing be left open. At the point that the commission feels that all the questions and concerns have been addressed, we would close the public hearing. And at some point in the future, the commission would have a discussion at a meeting that everybody could come and listen to. And we would come up with a consensus as to whether or not to approve the application or deny it. And at that time, a resolution is usually, in a lot of our cases, prepared. And then it would be voted on at an upcoming meeting. Okay, does that help?
Kind of. So there's likely to be multiple additional meetings
This is going to be on the agenda.
before any final
Yes.
resolution.
Yeah, this isn't something where,
And this is
At
just for the
eight-
text change.
yes, just for the text change.
This is no specific application.
Yeah,
Right.
there is nothing here that has anything to do with some kind of number of houses or anything, as I.
Yeah, but the
Right,
text
there's-
change basically changes the zoning characteristics of 108.
Yes, and if there is
Right.
anything after that, that's a whole separate application, and that is something that would be decided on that application's merits, and we go through basically the same protocol.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I just found out about this whole thing. I think it was Fred there who, I think that was his name, walked up to my house, handed me some documents and told me, what was proposed, what's going on.
Mhm.
And, as a resident at 365 Shelton Avenue, my next door neighbor, 369 is the one that has the potential to have 10 condos put in. So, and on an 1.5 acre property, you might figure that one of the gentlemen here was saying, hey, boy, it's going to be expensive. They're going to have to mow the grass, right? Well, there won't be any grass. If they put 10 condos on an 1.5 acres, there won't be any problem with mowing grass. There won't be any grass. That's a lot of real estate to put on an acre or an 1.5 acres. So it's a big concern. It will immediately affect my property value. My value will drop, 100,000, couple 100,000, I'm sure. And then my next door neighbor on the other side, they want to put 10 more next to them. I think that's 357. Don't have the numbers in front of me again. Just found out about this, but I gotta say that this is, not really good for me or any of my neighbors. It's a bad thing, and we strongly oppose it. There have been many deadly auto accidents all up and down Route 108. And if you don't believe me, just drive down the road and look at all the crosses that are on the side of the road. There's many blind corners, blind hills. It's a dangerous road, which may not seem so dangerous. And we have middle school buses traveling up and down. We have high school buses traveling up and down. And we have kids, inexperienced drivers going up and down that road at high rates of speed. It's already too congested and too dangerous to make way for this big additional block and zoning change. And by the way, I don't know if anybody realizes, I'm sure you do, but there's as many as 100 condos proposed for this area here. If the zoning goes into effect, 108 will see 100 additional condos. That's a lot of condos. That's a lot of traffic. That's a lot of disruption to an R1 zone. It's not good. So all I can say is, the neighborhood has learned about this. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do. And hey, we're talking about legal action. We're talking about getting together and putting some money together and putting up a fight, because you know what? We want to fight for our, lifestyle. We want to fight for, our property values. We want to fight for, our everything that we've, put into our homes over the last 10, 20, 30 years. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you for coming out. Next on the list, I'm not sure the first name, but DiBiase, the last name. Partridge Lane, come on up, sir.
It's been butchered worse. We're good.
What's the spelling of the first name?
Dibiase.
Your first name?
Rick.
Oh, Rick, okay. All right, identify yourself for the record.
Okay. Name is Richard Dibiase. I live at 28 Partridge Lane. Been there 32 years. I have to speak just a little selfishly because I'm talking about colonials. We have a colonial that we built in 1993. It butts up right against 118. The last proposal that they had here was going to put us within 17 feet of our garage, which means we could basically all watch the same program at night because they're going to be that close. Okay, I don't know how far away they're going to be this time, but you're right up against my house.
There isn't a layout. This is a text change. Okay,
Okay.
there isn't any layout. There isn't an application.
Well, according to
in front of
the,
us.
well, I'm just going by the map
Right.
that was presented to me.
Okay.
Okay. I would just, forgive me. I'm not up to all the words and the numbers and everything else.
You go
Just
ahead.
Speak layman terms, please. This is the second rodeo we've had with this. We had the first one that came and left. Basically my house is going to be, if this starts and it's that close, my house is basically going to be uninhabitable. My dog won't even be able to live there between the noise, the blasting. Has anyone mentioned anything about the destruction of the blasting, the wells, the foundations? No one's mentioned any of that.
Because there isn't an application or a table.
Well, if there is, they got to, well, it has to, if they're talking about it, they got to talk about the name.
There is blasting requirements that the fire marshal has to.
Okay, all right. And as far as an exit goes, my concern is my neighbors on Partridge Avenue, or Partridge Lane, I'm sorry, that if they do bust open that paper road there, okay, to make an exit, we're just going to have a deluge of cars coming down that street. Now, these are people that walk their children, their dogs, constantly all day long. We can count how many cars go up and down that street. So they can't just use that one little driveway that they have alongside that house on 118 as possibly the only exits leaving that property. And as far as I'm concerned, what I was told, that myself and Mr. Maldonado, who lives at 27, okay, we own that paper road. So again, no, I understand, but again.
Try and address the proposal that
The
Attorney
change in the
Bellis.
regulation.
Yeah, changing the regulation. That's what you need to speak to.
Okay.
Okay.
So basically, I mean, I don't know what else to, I don't know what else to say than.
Go ahead.
Oh my God, what a picture. That's a monster movie.
We all feel the same.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Not about him.
Yeah. No, it's about me, about me.
Well, we get our faces up there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I can't be specific on the numbers and all that stuff. I'm just thinking of myself, my family, the house that we've lived in for 32 years. I left 7 acres of land property in Bethlehem, Connecticut. I never thought I'd have enough. I said, no, there's no way that anything could compare to this. Well, I was wrong. Okay. This has been my home for 32 years. I'm proud to be a resident of it. And when I look out and I'm sorry, but when I look out my window and I see what's going to happen, I just, it's just not acceptable. And are they going to start talking about what's going to happen with the affected neighbors?
They can't because there is no text regulation change yet.
So right now, the
Explain to me what that means.
We have
sorry.
a 3-ring binder that has all of our zoning regulations in.
Like that.
Okay,
And what, yes, like this.
okay,
And what the applicant is asking is for a new section to be put in
okay,
for the age restricted, and he presented in his documents exactly what the parameters would be,
all right,
okay? And that's what he was going over in a simplified manner.
okay,
All this, the specific language is online,
okay,
so it looks something like this. So he is specifically suggesting things about how the district would be established, what size acreage would be
Right.
included, what would be allowed, what would happen, what would be the restrictions for sewers and public water, and buffers and setbacks. That's
Right.
what they're suggesting as this is what we're proposing.
okay,
That's what's in front of the commission. Do we look at this, we evaluate it, we take public input, and we discuss it as to, do we want this as a new section in the zoning?
okay,
regs?
so this is irregardless of what happens to, your budding neighbor, which would be me.
It doesn't have to be.
No, so if those regulations were to get approved by this
Right.
commission, then a developer or owner of that property can come in using those regulations for his proposal.
Okay,
But right now, there's no proposal on the table. It's only a proposal.
okay. Well, I didn't mean to
change
waste
the
your
zone.
time. I didn't understand. I'm sorry.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry
You
about
know,
that.
I was,
You're
It's a
at
learn-
step two, this is step one.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Hey, for the
Right.
first time, for the first time, I'm ahead of the class. I can tell your mother.
So that,
She can put the sticker on the refrigerator. Yeah. Okay, well,
No, it's.
that's all I have to say. I apologize if I wasted your time with this. This is all, you know,
Well,
Glad that you have a better understanding.
okay. Well, thank you very much for explaining that to me, and I'll try to be more specific next time I come. Okay?
Did you know
Thank you.
Steve Kayak up in Bethlehem?
I've heard of the name.
Yeah.
My mother's 95. She still lives there. She's been there almost 75 years. And we know so many people. Unfortunately, we've forgotten a lot of people. They moved on and stuff, but
I don't hear too many people saying that they're
Yeah.
from that area. so,
no,
okay.
it's beautiful, but
It is.
I'm happy here.
Very good.
Happy here. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, the next person on the list is Linda Henderson.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening, Linda.
Mine is gonna be short because I know I'm holding you up from the door.
No, no,
No,
no.
we've got a
You
long
the
night ahead of
time.
us.
My name is Linda Henderson. I live at
Can you talk a little closer?
19 Daybreak.
Yeah,
Lane.
get closer to the mic.
19 Daybreak Lane. I've been there for over 35 plus years now. I moved in this house with the expectation that it was gonna be a R1 zoning.
Mhm.
Last year, I think we started talking about opening up Partridge Lane.
The people in the audience can't hear you. Just pull it. You got to talk pretty close into the mic.
Where they were expecting to open Partridge Lane, which intersects with Daybreak Lane. I did not buy that house for anything other than R1 zoning. And my concern is that, number one, I don't know where we get the information that Bellis was reading. But I think the neighbors should understand when we come to these meetings, how do we get access to that same information so we're a little more prepared, which would be helpful. But today, I'd really like to understand the R1 zoning changes because it's not just going to impact that. I think we'll be setting a precedence if we allow this to happen in this particular instance. There's a lot of growth going on in Shelton. And I think by accepting this text, we are opening up a can of worms to start changing specific areas that are R1 to this new text or whatever the terminology, but it's basically changing our zoning. And many of the residents here have been here for 10, 20, 30 years, raised their kids. And to now see the neighborhood and area change and the makeup of that by changing it from R1, I think it's not just impacting those streets that you're focusing on, it's the precedence for the whole precedent we are setting for the city of Shelton. That's it.
So
That's
ma'am, to find documents for any open projects. You go to the City of Shelton's website. On the top, there's a section to look up each department. Go to the Planning and Zoning Department, and there's a link for open projects.
Okay,
And then under open projects, there'll be a list of open projects. I think there's only
Six
six
or
or
seven.
seven open projects.
Well,
And this particular project is in there. You click on this project number
Mhm.
and any uploaded document will be in there. And you
Okay.
can look at it and anytime there's a new one, it gets uploaded. It's listed by date.
but I think she's asking also, how do you find out where the R1s are, so on and so forth?
There's a zoning
Yeah,
map.
there's a
Just
zoning
go on
as
the
well.
That's
Website,
what I was gonna
search
ask.
zoning map.
okay.
You could always call the office and Ms. Castro would be able to walk you through. If you're sitting in front of a computer at home, it's still, okay, click here, click there.
I know someone
Yeah.
mentioned that they were taking this further through legal.
Mhm.
And I think those areas that are R1 today is at risk of losing that if this is accepted.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming. Is there anyone else here in the auditorium before we move to those that are, come on up and sign your sheet. There's a pen. Thank you. Oops. Okay, and ma'am, you can have a seat and let him sign.
Bank said M&T. Oh, no, wrong place. Looks like an M&T pen.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's your color scheme. Green and black. Can I have the sheet? Would you mind sliding? Thank you. Okay, just a reminder, for not, repeating everything that a previous, speaker might have, said and, address the merits of the application as Attorney Bellis presented. So, Remy, could you help me with your last name?
Kutsarek.
Kutsarek, okay? Identify yourself for the record.
Remy Kutsarek. I'm at 15 Partridge Lane. I grew up in Shelton since I was 4, and I've lived in that neighborhood since that age. My mom also here today is at 23 Partridge Lane, where I grew up. And I just want to say that this kind of all caught us by surprise, and it is kind of shocking that the property owners were not notified of this proposed zoning overlay on their and on adjacent properties, and that this lack of notification, it seems compliant with existing city commission rules.
Let me just interrupt you for a minute.
Yeah.
Attorney Tito, could you address that particular question? Yeah. Button up. There you go.
What the commission has before it right now has been explained a couple of times. It's a text amendment proposal. But you are correct in thinking that it has some specific application to specific properties, because it is affecting 8 separate pieces of property that have been identified. The commission has to decide whether or not, and it has the discretion, whether or not it wants additional information with regard to those properties, but it's not required in this phase. This phase is a text change. Normally a text change is a generic change of the regulations that has citywide or zone-wide application. It's been identified that this particular text change would have specific impact. And the commission within their deliberations, will talk about that and make a decision as to whether or not they feel that there needs to be more input from the neighborhood, because it looks more like a zone change than a text change. But that is something that they will decide as they move on.
And Attorney Tinozo, could you just talk about the notice?
The notice requirement goes with a zone change. So if they feel that it looks and smells like a zone change, they will require that the notifications go out to those 8 properties.
The neighbors of.
Yeah.
The zone change requires anybody within 500 feet of an affected property to be notified and certification to come back to this commission. Certification that it happened.
Proof of mailing. Right. Well, it seems that there's a fine line between a text change and a zone change. And is there something that the commission should have asked the applicant to do before this?
No, the
without
the applicant hasn't done anything wrong, but you, as the arbiter of text change, have the right to get as much information about the text change that you want. So you can ask that those properties be identified, as you did, but you can also ask that the neighbors be identified with regard to those properties, or informed if you choose to. You're not required to, but you can. And I think that's what everybody is struggling with right now. I don't think the commission is saying to anybody in the public that this is a done deal and these are the rules of the game. I think what they're saying is they need to open this hearing up and start looking at everything, make whatever substantive and discretionary decisions they think appropriate to comply with our zoning regulations and protect the integrity of the zoning regulations.
Okay, I mean, it does seem to be a very fine distinction between a zoning change and a text change overlay, at least to those of us that live in the neighborhood. And it almost seemed as though what could have happened is, if there were no further need for conversation, you could close tonight's meeting and then make a decision in approval of that text change. Do I understand that correctly?
The first step is the public hearing, and that's what's happening. So the information is coming in, and that's what this process is designed to do.
Oh, I understand that, but if after the meeting today, if it were deemed that no more information was required, and neighbors would not be notified, for example, which you said is their discretion, then a decision could have just been made.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And I'm questioning that.
Wouldn't they have to come before the commission for a special exception?
Right, but a special exception is.
Phase 2.
With all due respect to the attorney, a special exception is not a legislative action on your part. It's an administrative action on your part. So if they have X, Y, and Z, which are proposed in the text change, you have no alternative but to give that to them.
If they meet the parameters of.
But would they have to notify the residents that they were?
They can notify the residents, but the application goes through if X, Y, and Z is there.
Okay.
It's as of right.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So
Okay,
it
go
does,
ahead.
so it does seem that this text change, if approved, would make it much easier to, and I know the R1 is still in place technically, but it makes it a lot easier to sort of usurp that and get dense housing, for example, in this case, potentially. I know this isn't before the commission now, but 10 units approved. It seems that it's easier once the overlay is in place. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, but you're also assuming that it would be passed.
Correct. Correct, which after today's meeting, it potentially could be, unless you decided to take other action and invite and notify neighbors of what's going on. Is that correct? Okay.
Plus, it's been in the paper too.
Yes, it is.
So I just kind of wanted to understand that. You know, obviously I agree with and I won't read the rest of my remarks about the fact that, you know, we believe that we bought into R1, we've grown up in R1. This is what we really would like it to be. But it seems that time and time again, the developers that have been coming before the commission come with huge applications to give the illusion of compromise when it's cut down. And we're all supposed to kind of look at that as a win. Oh, gee, it wasn't 40, it's only 20. Or gee, it wasn't 40, in this case, maybe it's 10. And it just feels like there's an onslaught going on. It really does. And especially, I don't know if you all are, I know you're all Sheltonites, but if you drive through that neighborhood and down those streets, you'll see there's a character to it. There's a feel to it. We all live there. We want to live there. And this just feels, even at 10 homes, feels like a real infusion of something that is totally incongruous with the neighborhood. So I'll conclude my remarks with that. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, next one is Dan Christensen.
No walker this time.
Oh, that's right. Glad you do it better.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dan Christensen. I live at 394 Shelton Avenue. I own a property, or my wife owns a property directly across the street from one of these proposals, which I believe is 395. Seems like we're getting hit on multiple sides. We've got one proposal to the right and one in front of us. Just to touch on what was just talked about, the text change versus the zone change. Kind of sounds like to me, if the text change is granted on these proposed properties or these properties that have been identified in the areas that they've been identified, according to Attorney Teodosio, if they come back after the text change is approved and they've got X, Y, and Z, they get it by right. So let's call a zone change. I don't know how other, I mean, it was a great point that she made, great questions that she made. I don't know her name, but fellow Shelton resident, that's going to possibly be affected just as my wife and I. So again, text change is approved by the commission. Somebody comes in with X, Y, and Z. It's a given. You're going to get the 10 houses, the 20 houses, the 60 houses. Not sure if, and this kind of relates a little bit to it. I'm not sure if the commission's aware that the city of Shelton is without a supervisor at the wastewater treatment plant. There's been a job posted since December. Seems like a pretty good job. Not really sure why it hasn't been filled as of yet, but to my knowledge, what I've been led to believe, there's been a number of studies that the sewage treatment plant needs roughly $50 million worth of upgrades to kind of comply or get up to speed with what the state requires. I've also been told that it's a regular occurrence during periods of heavy water events with storms and everything, that the city of Shelton has no other choice but to freely release untreated, partially treated waste into the river.
Mr. Christensen, can you sort of?
It has to do with
make a
these
connection.
applications. All these
Make
things
a
are
connection.
tied to a sewer. So
But yeah.
who's approving these
I'm
applications?
just asking you to connect your thoughts to
Okay.
this, okay?
Okay. And just one other thing on the sewage treatment plant, to my knowledge, that rather than capitulate to the mayor, the past supervisor chose to resign. So again, we're a city without a supervisor for the wastewater treatment plant, and that deals with all of these proposals because water and waste across the street from me, water and waste next door to me. So touching on another thing, the 8-30 was mentioned by Attorney Bellis. Just to give everybody here a different option rather than being faced with an 8-30 application, which I will say the committee voting to approve 16 homes next door to me rather than face an 8-30, which was threatened and actually is proposed. You know, it's something that's being weaponized.
Agree with you on that.
Right, right, but there's still an 8-30 that I'm sure I'll be back here speaking
The bind we're in.
against. And I've just got one other thought, and possibly the commission could maybe talk amongst yourself and figure out if there's a legal way. You know, when 8-30s come in and they're gonna give us 10%, the bar doesn't move. You know, the bar doesn't move. And our municipality is able to go a step above 20% or 30%. You want to do an 8-30? Come fine. Let's put 30%.
We do have an affordable housing plan that has a chart, specific chart for number of units and how many units should be at 80%, how many should be at 60%. It's in our affordable housing plan. I think it's page 24. It's on mine.
30G, it is 30%.
Yeah, and that's different.
Okay, yeah, it'd just be nice to see the bar move. But again, thank you for your wisdom on the 16 homes. I am hoping that that's what ultimately ends up happening instead of 56 next door to me. Thank you very much.
Mr. Christensen. Next one is it DeBella last name? 99 Armstrong Road. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you spell it? What's your first name, sir?
Gilman.
Gilman, Gilman.
Correct.
And how do you spell your last name?
L-E. Capital B-E-L-L-E.
Okay, LaBelle. Okay.
Yes.
Identify yourself for the record.
Okay, live on 99 Armstrong Road, and we've been there 47 years. And
Just state your name again for the record.
Gilman LaBelle.
Perfect. Okay, go ahead.
Yep, okay. And I'd like to know if there was any revisions made or up-to-date plans from the last meeting for Armstrong Road with the cluster of houses on 2 acres. We hadn't heard for so long and wondered if they revamped the house in front, which they did a good job. But I mean,
there is no application here at City Hall
everything is
for that particular piece of property.
Oh, it's still stalemate or?
That application was withdrawn.
Withdrawn.
It's withdrawn.
So to this date, it's still withdrawn?
Yep.
Okay. I think we spoke and there was a lot of good people that talked.
No.
And I guess they were answered, you know, but I just wanted to know if it was on record. And I thought this meeting here tonight, this agenda was particular, it would discuss that, you know.
No, this is for change in language and the zoning regs.
But Armstrong Road, you're probably aware, there's a truck or vehicle that goes by every 5 seconds.
Oh,
You know, and one of the meetings, we said, you know, it's a causeway there that goes into Stratford, divides. And I had mentioned to the police officer, I said, what can we do before someone gets killed there or maimed or whatever? And they went out and they put reflector tape on the barriers. I mean, and that was all that was done there, you know, it was, the road wasn't wide. You know, you take cars that come around that is 40 miles an hour is nothing, yeah.
Yeah, the police department is the traffic authority in town. That's not something that we have authority over.
Yeah.
City streets. It is the traffic authority is the police department.
I have to go through that.
I think it's Officer Vinhouse.
I'm planning to do that as my next move. It's, they repaved it and they didn't even put the lines back into the road.
There's a street committee on Board of Aldermen and Alderman McPherson is in charge of that.
Yeah.
Sir, just to clarify, the original 40 units that were proposed way back when,
Yeah.
that application was withdrawn.
Mhm.
But tonight, we just accepted a new application.
A petition?
No, well,
It
it's
is-
now an 830G application.
They're still holding on to the 40 units.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
But that's what we accepted tonight, but the original one was withdrawn. Now it's back, it's an 830.
Probably would accept, say, 10 houses or 2 units, but not 40 units. It's on that.
Well, you'll have
Bottom line.
to come back for the public hearing for that.
Yeah.
Now, when will that be?
We have not
We
set
haven't
that
set
yet.
the date.
That's staff and I will be
But
talking about. that.
everybody, what do they usually do? Send out a notice? or-
There's a legal notice.
Okay, and there'd be another meeting just for that agenda or whatever, yeah. Okay, so I don't have to repeat what I did last.
Okay,
Save it for next.
I appreciate it.
you're very welcome. Okay, and the next person is Fran Piazza. Go ahead, identify yourself for the record.
Fran Dibias, 28 Partridge Lane.
You may need to lower the microphone.
Here you go. No,
No,
down. Yeah, there you go.
Fran Dibias, 28 Partridge Lane. Just to let everyone know, my home abuts 118 Armstrong. That's all.
Mhm.
So that is a big issue for us. And I just have a few questions, maybe you guys can answer for me. One of them is, if you accept this a text amendment, is it accepted as is, or do you work on it and make changes?
No, we take it as is. This is what the proposal is. So we would reject, pass it or reject it.
Because it's strange to me that a person is actually making this text amendment. Like, could I make it and present it? to you?
Anybody can
But you guys are the
apply
ones
to the
that-
commission to do something, yes.
But you're the commission, you know what to put down, what should be regulation, what not.
That's part of the discussion that we would have. We would evaluate the proposal.
Not gonna be easy.
No, it never is.
This job is not easy.
Will you be
Well, we
making
do
the
it for
decision
free.
after this? You should be paid. Will
Okay,
you
go ahead.
be making that decision after this meeting?
No, no,
Not on this.
no.
Okay.
Not tonight.
We may decide that we want to have more, the applicant, we need some more information, so we will continue the public hearing. It will be kept open. At some point, it will be on another agenda and we will continue our discussions and I will ask the commission, all right, well, how do you want to move on this? Are you ready to close the public hearing or is there more information that you need that we continue it again? At some point, it will be closed. It will be on a further agenda. We do reserve the right to talk about something that night, same night, but more times than not, it's on an upcoming agenda that we have it as an agenda item, and I will acknowledge it at the appropriate time during the meeting, and we will open the floor for us to discuss it amongst ourselves in front of anybody that's here. And then we would come to consensus as to what we want to do. Do we want to approve it? Do we want to deny it? Okay.
So this amendment is accepted. Can anyone, the way it is, can anyone apply for it anywhere in Shelton?
No, there are specific street and lots.
Anywhere on that street, anywhere in that
It's
whole
in the
area?
language.
I know,
It's
but that
on-
area says south of Old Stratford Road, from Ripton to
Mhm.
Nels Rock.
What I'm gonna do is, after the last person from the public speaks, either here in the auditorium or remotely, the applicant gets up and addresses all of the questions.
Okay,
So we are giving
So
him the
my question
burden of
is-
answering that.
my property abuts it. My property should be part of it, right?
That's what we call a floating zone. So, but again, the applicant will be having the burden of explaining everything.
And my other question would be, can you join two parcels and double the units?
Again,
Okay.
okay,
And it also, this is another question that you may or not.
Mhm.
So the two applications are being presented right now, one for the amendment.
no, just an amendment.
Okay,
That's all.
right. And then the other property, that was the other application that we discussed first for the 830G.
That is something that we accepted tonight for review. That's all we've done so far.
I understand.
Yeah,
But
okay.
both of them are for the same property. So you have two
Yes.
different things.
Yes.
The ARD and for the, that's possible?
Yeah, if people can file multiple,
Well, it would be one or the other. You
Yeah.
could do both.
But they're doing both. They presented one and
They've got
working
two
together.
applications before us, but
only one will,
only one.
in
So
the long run,
that's
will
kind
be
of funny how
controlling
it's
it.
being done now.
It's not unusual.
Okay.
It's like hedging your bets.
That's answers my questions. I just have questions.
That's
that-
all?
Yeah.
Okay.
You.
Okay.
Wish us luck.
Thank you. All right, now we'll go to the members of the public participating remotely. If there's anyone participating through Zoom, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature. If you are participating through a phone link, please dial *9 on your phone.
I've added in Mr. Tom Harbinson.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Robinson. Identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Certainly. Thomas Harbinson, 15 Soundcrest Drive. I have 7 questions regarding this application. The revised text amendment of 2025, February 27th, item 3C, number 2, states that the AARD property must be south of Old Stratford Road and east of Route 8. I am confused since there was a document in the folder for the application showing how this might apply to 118 Armstrong Road, which is north of Armstrong Road. So my question is, have all of the parcels that might be eligible or impacted by the proposed AARD zone been properly identified? Next, at a prior meeting for the application, the Attorney Bellis indicated that he would apply this to a wide area that overlaid Route 8, Route 110, Route 108. However, after some feedback, this was then limited in scope to apply to certain size parcels. And from the 2025 February 27th text amendment, 3A, sites not less than 1.5 acres and no larger than 2.5 acres and in an underlying R1 residence zone. So my question is, in the identification of, quote, parcels which are eligible, has it also been identified where, quote, sites on subsequent applications might be accomplished via the combination of existing parcels to meet the 1.5 to 2.5 acre band of eligibility? Next, I'm confused because Attorney Bellis stated tonight that this is an overlay zone that floats over the parcels. So my question is this proposed regulation a zoning overlay similar to a special development area, or is it a floating zone similar to a planned development district, or is it simply a new zoning district via a text amendment? With a zoning proposal that applies to a very specific set of parcels, it does seem more like a zone change. And given the comments by Remy earlier in the room tonight, I would suggest that these properties so impacted be identified and informed or noticed so that there is a better developed information for even more thoughtful decisions. There were comments made in a prior meeting by Attorney Bellis when identifying parcels that would reduce the broad application of the ARD regulations, that there were enough parcels to help it qualify for an application. And after that revision to not be as expansive, it was stated that this zone would apply to 12 parcels, although Attorney Teodosio tonight referenced 8 parcels. There was reference by Commissioner Parkins as to text sessions to ensure that text amendments such as this be examined as to how they apply to the entire city and not be spot zoning. Yet tonight, an application was accepted for review with an Armstrong Affordable District creation that specifically applies to a single parcel of land, much as an affordable the Huntington Affordable District and yet another application only applies to a single parcel of land. So my question is there a minimum number of parcels or lots that a proposal for zone amendment should apply to so that it would not be considered a spot zone? Next, there were comments made in a prior meeting by Attorney Bellis that there was a metric of how age-restricted units via 40-year deed restrictions add points or consideration toward achieving or recognizing percentages for affordable housing issues. I thought I heard something tonight about half points. So could there be an explanation provided on how that calculation occurs under simply these proposed age restrictions? And do those work in concert with or in addition to any affordable housing aspects the development might have layered within an application? Also, item 37.5 of the proposed recommendation mentions that, quote, one of the elderly units be occupied by persons or families whose income is equal to or less than 80% of the average median income, end quote. Yet the statement on file from February 27th says 10% of the units would be deed restricted as affordable. Those affordable calculations should be reconciled. If there were a proposal, say, totaling 4 units, would one of them have to be required to be affordable, or would it be 10% of 4 causing none being affordable? So could there be some clarification to that? And my last question is, who is the designee to confirm that an investor owner is renting the units to someone who is 55 plus? Does only one person or signator to being a tenant have to be 55 plus? For example, can a husband be 60 and the wife be 30 and still qualify? How is there surety that deed restrictions are being adhered to both from an affordable aspect and from an age restriction aspect? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harbinson. Ms. Castro, anybody else from the public?
Yes. George Friend.
George Friend, okay. Mr. Friend, please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Yes, George Friend, 2 Daybreak Lane in Shelton. I also own 2 other properties in one of the areas that would be affected by this text amendment, specifically 34 Daybreak Lane and 79 Old Stratford Road. First, I have a couple of comments. For starters, I agree conceptually with age-restricted zones, right? But 10 units on 1.5 acres is far too dense for an R1 zone. It would be totally incompatible with the neighborhood. And then going to the text amendment, section 37.2, item 3E, where it talks about establishment of district height, area, and bulk standards. It states that the impervious lot coverage shall not exceed 80% of the lot area. I've talked about this in other specific applications, but item B in that section requires the proposed dwellings to be connected to the city water, but the surrounding homes in the area may not be connected to city water and fully dependent upon well water. I know for a fact this applies to both Daybreak Lane and Partridge Lane, both of which abut one of these proposed overlay areas, specifically Armstrong Road. In my opinion, a 1.5 acre lot with a single family home has a significant amount of permeable surface area to enable adequate replenishment of the aquifer. Covering a significant percentage of that lot with asphalt and buildings and other impervious surfaces will adversely affect the wells of the adjacent properties. So those are my comments. Now, a couple of questions. Item G in that section regarding parking and circulation standards, it doesn't state anything about requiring 2 access points to like a 10-unit development. Is there a density threshold above which 2 access points to a development are required? And is that part of this, amendment, or is that really part of a specific zoning application?
Mr. Friend, state your questions and the applicant will respond.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a density threshold above which 2 access points to a development are required? My second question, and I don't know if this is for the applicant or for the commission, but if there are other pending applications in any of the areas that would be affected by the overlay areas that conflict with the text of this specific text amendment, what happens to those applications? Are they processed, assuming this amendment is not approved, or are they put on hold pending the outcome of this text amendment proposal? That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Castro, anyone else? No. All right, any, one by phone?
No.
No, okay. All right, Attorney Bellis, you have the floor for, response to all the comments.
I'll be brief. Let me state that I go to a lot of zoning hearings, and I just wanted to say that the public that spoke here tonight did a very nice job in keeping to the facts, and I kind of appreciate that they didn't go too far afield, and it's nice to hear. So I want to thank the residents that came up and spoke. The sad reality is that this zoning commission and all the other zoning commissions in Connecticut are in a bind. And the bind that they're in is made by a state statute that is the law. And the law is called 8-30G is a nickname. It's just the name of the statute.
That's this one.
Sorry. So I appreciate that the Planning and Zoning Commission's put in a bind very often, not just in this town, but all the towns. And so what you have is a developer, any developer, can propose an 830G on any parcel with unlimited density, unlimited density. And if the Planning and Zoning Commission were to shoot it down, which they usually do, the applicant then goes to the Superior Court, and the burden's on the town to show that there was a significant health or safety reason that outweighed the need for affordable housing. Well, I litigate these things in court, and I haven't lost one yet. And I'm not so special, let me promise you that. I'm not. The reason why we win is because the deck is stacked against the town. There's no question. There's just no question about it. So when I came up and represented this client, he said, is there an alternative to an 8-30G? And I suggested the text amendment as an alternative because it limits the density, it limits the location, and it gives the town some flexibility by using a special permit. I agree with Fran's analysis that a special exception is still administrative, not legislative, but it gives you a little more control than a site plan for sure. So you're saying, well, I think one of the gentlemen said, 830G is more like a weapon, and I use the term tool. I can't disagree with that gentleman's assessment. I'm an attorney, and I can present applications as long as they're under the law. And 830G is a law, and it's a state law. And the problem that this commission and other commissions have is that if they have no other kind of tools in their toolbox, they're stuck with either rejecting it, paying the money to go to court, and probably, not 100%, but maybe, I think the latest statistics were 80 or 90% chance of losing it in court. So this proposal was made for the reason that it helps this town solve a problem with needing age-restricted housing, number one. Number two, it solves a problem with a developer who wants to file and apparently has filed an 8-30G. And so to answer your questions, I respect every single one of you coming up here saying, well, we live in an R1 zone. I live in an R1 zone in Shelton. They could pick my neighbor's property and do the same thing, so I get it. But the only spot that is not allowed for an 8-30G application is an industrial zone. Any other zone is fair game. So I'm sorry to say that it's not this zoning commission. You can't blame them. You can blame the state law that was passed in 1990 and has been repeatedly amended, but it's basically the same law. I'll answer a couple of questions. Should this be a zone change? Absolutely not. A zone change requires the homeowner to sign off on having a zone changed on his or her piece of property. So it can never be a zone change without the homeowner signing an application that he wants his property, he or she wants his property have a zone change. It's not a zone change. It's an overlay zone. What's an overlay zone? Well, look up Connecticut General Statute 8-2M, M as in Mary. An overlay zone is just that. It floats or overlays a certain amount of parcels, and it can land at any particular time if that particular homeowner meets the criteria for the text amendment. Is this spot zoning? Why is 830G not spot zoning? Because the courts say it's not. That's why. Of course, 830G is spot zoning. You can take one piece of property and just that piece of property, say I'm changing the zone to allow 100 apartments on an R1 zone. That's what I'm proposing in Stratford. I'll be going there next week. Only about 20 of you showed up here. I get 250 people opposing me in Stratford. So I'm sorry about that, but 830G, the courts have said is not spot zoning because there's a need for affordable housing, and 830G is a zone change law that allows a developer to propose a conceptual site plan with no density requirements. So this is not a spot zone law, the one that the text amendment I am proposing, because it doesn't pertain to one property. There isn't just one owner. There are several owners, at least 12 that I can figure that it would be applicable to. So clearly it's not spot zoning as a text amendment. The half point comes from the statute where 830G actually gives towns some points that count either towards a moratorium or their 10%. If a town reaches 10%, then you can't do any more 830G applications. But I think one of the gentlemen pointed out it's going to be hard for our town to ever reach the 10% because you give only 10% and you have the other 9, you don't gain any ground, as he correctly points out. But we're not anywhere as close to 10%. So the half point comes from the statute, and it has to do with the fact that if you have an elderly unit, it's under 8-30G 6F. It gives the town a half point. Again, I just read the statute. In my proposal for text amendment, how does one check on that affordable? I put right in the text amendment that any occupant of an elderly unit shall provide proof of the person's age and any affordable income level to the City of Shelton administrator. To the best of my knowledge, I think the town was interviewing a particular gentleman to be an administrator. I don't know whether he was selected. I happen to use him. He's very good. His name is Mark Nolan. He's out of Danbury. I don't know whether he was appointed as your administrator or not. As far as 2 access points, again, that has to do with a site plan approval. But to the best of my understanding, access points, having more than one access point on a particular parcel, comes from the fire code. It's not a zoning thing. The best I could remember, I think it was, don't quote me on this, I think you could have 100 homes with one access. So, but that's a fire code issue. It's not a zoning issue. It's not a 830G or anything like that. It has to do with the fire code. So in summing up, I was trying to help the town come up with another tool. That's what I call the tool in the toolbox to use, if they so choose, to thwart or to perhaps blunt, or whatever the word you want to use, make it a little more palatable. I don't know the word. An 830G application that's filed in this town. I think you all know that although I have probably a dozen of them pending right now, I do not file them in this town as an attorney. That's my own personal preference. I live here, and that's the way I choose to practice. So, I'm familiar with it. I do it all over the state. I just won't do it here. And, but that doesn't mean that whoever does it is doing something wrong. They're not. They're following the law. I hope this helps give the town another choice, to solve a problem. And
Attorney
don't-
Bellis, can you speak to the text?
yeah. Well, the text amendment solves your problem. It helps alleviate 830 Gs that you're gonna be seeing, and you got one tonight.
All right, there are a couple of questions that, Mr. Harbinson. What about the discrepancy he felt in the identifying the direction?
I'm not good on directions, to be honest.
Come back on.
I don't know. My father-in-law said to me, "I'll meet you at Giant Stadium in the northwest corner." I don't have a compass in my hand.
Seriously, as
I don't know whether it's south or north. I believed that Armstrong Road was south of Old Stratford Road and east of and also south of Route 8. If I'm mistaken, stand to be corrected.
You'll need to verify that. And
Yeah.
what his other comment was, using the word sites and then using the word parcel.
I don't know that there's a difference in a parcel or a site. Generally speaking, the town has divvied up properties and owners own, I think the legal term is parcel or a site. And then the assessor gives that particular parcel or site an address.
So your
I don't
answer
see a
is you don't think
distinction.
it's a difference.
No, I'm not making a distinction.
Okay, I think you answered or addressed zoning overlay or floating zone. We talked about affected parcels and the notice required.
I disagree strongly with that. It's a zone change. I don't have a problem letting the public know, but I think Fran was correct. We just follow the law, and on a text amendment, notice is given through the newspaper and online.
All right, and then also, what about the minimal parcels of land that would be accepted for review? Mr. Harbinson was talking about that.
I thought the text amendment is clear that you have to be an owner of a parcel or a site that is 1.5 to 2.5 acres. I could make that any more clear.
Right, so if there are two R1 lots side by side, and one happens to have 1.25 acres, another one has more than that, and you end up with 3 acres, then that particular parcel would not be eligible for this.
Correct.
It has to be within the acreage that you specify in.
Correct.
Exceed
Yeah.
minimum amount.
Right.
It's limited, yes.
He brought up something about section 37.5, the occupancy, 10% of the units.
Oh, yeah, I don't understand that either because I made it, you have to have at least one affordable unit. So if you had 9, you still need one, because you can't have like 10% of, if you guys approved 8 units, you can have 8 tenths. No, so I just made it simpler and said, well, instead of 10%, it would be 1 unit because there's a maximum of 10. So in my example, if you approve 5, you'd have to have 1 of them be affordable, which may be obviously more than 10%. It just made more sense. You can't have a fraction of a house.
Any questions for Attorney Bellis? Everybody clear? Okay. All right, so how would the commission like to proceed on this? Or do you want to continue the public hearing? Is there more information you need, or closing the public hearing for it to be on a upcoming agenda for?
I think it's great that we had this many people come out tonight. I really do. We really appreciate you folks coming out. But I'm concerned about all the people that are within these parcels that weren't aware of what's going on, because how many people literally look every week to see what the planning and zoning is doing in the newspaper? They just don't. So I'm wondering if it's not wise of us to reach out to those areas and
I agree. Us
Invite
or
them.
the applicant.
The applicant.
Yeah, I have no, listen, I have no problem giving a little notice, like we do for.
We're gonna hear much different, but
No.
I want to be able to hear.
Yeah,
their-
I will voluntarily, if you tell me to, mail out to the homes that I've listed. Most of them are probably here because there's only 12. But there could be a few that,
Not just on Armstrong, all the properties that would be.
yeah, there's 7 and 5, there's only 12.
Wait, whoa. Why, wouldn't there be something like within 500 feet or whatever? You're specifying along these two streets, these are the properties because they abut that street.
No, it's because they're 1.5 to 2.5 acres.
So we.
That's,
Likely they would notify their.
so if someone had a 1 acre parcel, which there could be quite a few in that area, they're not eligible for this text amendment.
Mhm. They have to have a minimum of 1.5.
Yeah, that's what it says.
So it's just the actual property that would be impacted. That would be.
That's what I
eligible.
listed, correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's other homes obviously in that area, but they would not be, they could not use this overlay zone.
But if you're living next door to someone who's 1.5 acres, that's where. I
That's
think
what we're
it's
saying. We want to, the neighbors of that within a certain radius of.
Well, I can't speak to that.
Well, I mean, yeah,
I mean, you have to tell me who you want to notify.
I think,
You know what I'm saying? I know who this text amendment impacts.
specifically, it's, yes, it is those 12 parcels.
Yeah,
but
obviously,
However,
yes.
we have to take into consideration anyone who is
Within the-
adjacent to them.
But 500 feet like you would for any other.
Well, 500 feet might
That's a
be
lot.
hard if you measure 500 feet
Yeah.
because
Yeah, it's
they
hard.
could be in a larger lots that they're not gonna get picked up
Mhm.
in an R1.
So why do we advertise it?
It was up to.
Maybe the property
It
and
wasn't.
maybe the property and the butters to the property.
Mhm,
People across the street.
mhm.
I understand that. Yeah, I do. If that's what you're asking me, that's okay. That's what I was trying to say. I need some direction.
I think it would be the
Definitely.
butters. You can't really do a radius. I
No.
think just
I don't think
the
the radius would work in this case.
and the butters.
I get it.
And I think hopefully they.
I can do
get the
that.
word out.
And would the commission be in agreement that at that particular time that it's on the agenda, that we would hear the proposal all over again?
Oh.
So that.
You want me to go all over again? Oh, I apologize. Yeah.
So that anyone that was not here this evening would have the ability to learn as much as possible, as much as we've heard tonight.
I would strongly recommend that they watch the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true too. It's.
I would provide, let them watch it at their leisure rather than taking up time at a meeting
Mhm.
to go through this all again.
Just
Just
a brief
advise them that a public hearing was held and it was noticed that more additional people should be made aware. Please watch this video, give them a link. To
Yeah,
the
I think
video.
we do it on YouTube, right?
Yeah, you
Yes,
do.
it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
I'm not good with links, but
Just be
maybe
clear
Alexander can
that
give me the
there might
link.
be some residents that just don't have that capability to do that, so. I think it should be part of your notice.
I would put that in
That
the
if
notice
you
to
do
watch it
not-
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you do not have the capability to do so,
Oh,
then they have to make you aware of that. Just so that we're all on the same page,
oh, I got it.
okay?
Yeah. If they don't have a computer.
Yeah, I mean, only have the ability to go to the library and look at things online or
I would
whatever.
also suggest that you modify or change the directional so as to not cause more confusion on the description.
As Mr. Harpenstein was.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
Questioning.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's obvious then that we would be leaving the public hearing open?
Yes,
Yes.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion
And I'll do that notice.
Second it.
You don't have to do it.
All right, so there is a motion to continue public hearing made by Commissioner Parkins, and it was seconded by Commissioner Kelly. And on the motion to continue, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Cristiano,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Motto,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Motion is passed by a vote of 6-0. And this, the continuation of this public hearing will be on the agenda of an upcoming meeting, and if there is any new material submitted by the applicant, then the public would be able to present comments on new material. And just to clarify for the public, it is the applicant that uploads material to the city's website.
Yes.
It is not something where paper copies are dropped off at City Hall and staff scans them in and puts them for viewing online. That is.
Oh, have I been doing it wrong?
No, we're good. No, it's just so that the public understands, how does this stuff get on the computer? That's all.
So, I will do the abutters to the, well,
Just that abutters include people across the street.
you want me to put it across the street?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so we're moving on to the next agenda item.
Thank you all very much.
We would really need to reserve those questions until the next time it's on the agenda. We are continuing public hearing, and our protocol is that we cannot continue on at this time. Attorney Titosa, what would you recommend?
I agree with you. I thought that everybody who wanted to talk.
Mm-hmm.
But I asked the questions on and they were not answered.
I'll go back through my notes, sir.
It's about whether the existing dwelling is included in the.
If the existing what?
If the existing dwelling is included in that 55 age range.
We do not have an application on file that we discussed tonight that shows here is the proposal. These are the number of buildings going up and such on a particular piece of property. This is just a text change to our zoning regulations.
May
Okay?
not be a dwelling on the property.
Attorney Titosa, can you
I'm saying. that
clarify any more?
already There,
Yeah, I know there's a house there, but this is not
right, it's not
part of the
a
text,
project.
this text change.
I don't have anything else to say.
Okay. All right. That's the best we could say. We do not have an application in front of us at this time that we had on the agenda to discuss. So we have no information. That is a separate project altogether. At some point, that may be filed. And we had something earlier this evening that we accepted it for review, but it's not part of this public hearing. Okay? All right, so we're moving on to old business, application 24.20-20, Dominic Thomas for Crown Point LLC. And thank you. Application 24-20, Dominic Thomas for Crown Point 2 LLC at 0 Bridgeport Avenue and 48 Long Hill Crossroads. Assessors map 50, lots 15 and 16 in an LIP zone for a planned development district for a mixed-use commercial development to include a hotel, restaurants, grocery, and retail. This application was accepted for review on July 10th, 2024. The public hearing opened on September 18th, was continued to November 20th, January 22nd, February 5th, February 26th, and it closed on March 12th. So the floor is open for discussion on this particular application. Is there any commissioner? What?
Are you asking me a question?
No.
You look perplexed, like you were wondering what she was talking about. Sorry. I read your face wrong.
Slipping pained. All right, so the floor is open for discussion on the project that we closed the public hearing on for 0 Bridgeport Avenue and 48 Long Hill Crossroads. It is the hotel, Texas Roadhouse, the retail building, Dairy Queen, and the very end of it was conservation. Or not, what, how do they
Doesn't
categorize it?
include Long Hill? Doesn't that include
0 Bridgeport Avenue in Long Hill. Yeah, the
Yeah,
name of it is called 0 Bridgeport Avenue, 48 Long Hill
You
Crossroads.
didn't mention-
Yes, okay.
Okay.
All right, so what is the feeling of the commission on what's been proposed?
Okay, where we go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Was that ever interested in speaking up?
So we heard from the residents.
Speaking to the mic though, Charlie.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, sorry.
otherwise. Won't.
So we heard from the residents of Fox Ridge.
Mhm.
When they first, when there was the first few years ago, there were supposed to be apartments on Long Hill Avenue. And they did not like that. So apartments were suggested, they didn't like it, but it's okay for townhouses. So I'm really not quite sure what they want, but also, in saying that, the land on Long Hill should stay as LIP. Right on that side of the road, there's more and more commercial buildings up there. As far as the traffic that they talk about, there would probably be more traffic if there was apartments or townhouses up there in lieu of a small commercial building. The lot size is not that big, so they can't build a massive building.
You're talking about the triangular piece.
Yes,
that's
I am.
Now that they moved the property line down.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
So I really think that they're trying to change the zoning and the land to their liking. And that's not what we're about. As far as the buildings and whatnot on Bridgeport Avenue, I see no problem. So I would leave the upper portion as an LIP, and what was presented to us on Bridgeport Avenue, I would approve that.
Mhm.
I'd rather not see anything built up there. In my
Right.
preference. I think probably architecturally townhouses would blend better with the whole site with their properties. So if something has to be built there, which I don't see why anything has to be built there. I would be okay with townhouse.
You have a building.
Mhm.
You have a commercial building right next to it.
But it's gonna be,
It's still right next to it. No.
if they leave the whole thing, the whole top piece is LIP, can they not then develop the entire parcel?
No, because of the sewage. They have to have some sort of a right of way, so they have to avoid.
They were offering some station.
Right, exactly.
About the project, the whole project.
Discussing the project as a whole.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. All right, Commissioner Tiki, I want to give you the opportunity if you want to make any comments.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about this one. I do understand that the residents were pleased to not have residences there. I do still think that the project on the whole is still pretty dense. I agree with Commissioner Mattow's comments about on the top portion. I would like to see no development, but certainly they do have the right if they wanted to come back to develop that. So I'm still thinking through the density of it, and I note though that the residents really came a long way with this, and the developer, the applicant, did seem to really work with the nearby residents to try to alleviate a lot of their concerns and minimize some of the footprint of the of the development.
Is that it? Commissioner Ticky, are you done?
Yes, I am done.
All right, sounded as good. Your connection was lost or something. Okay,
Madam Chair, are
Yeah,
you
so-
only talking about the piece at the top, or are you talking about the whole?
no, this is the whole
Oh,
project, but the original application included
No, I understand that.
another property line is lower
Right.
to the thing.
So I think people know where I stand on the record for
They don't know what they can.
allowing housing in a LIP zone, because Hawks Ridge was such that it was an LIP zone that was turned into housing, and I voted against it. So it's not that I feel that those folks don't want to look down, but it's okay for other people. That was a comment made by one of the residents, is that I don't want to see housing either put into a commercial PDD or put into an LIP zone. So that's where I stand on that. So I'm glad that the housing is no longer included in it. Because quite honestly, yes, people would know, they'd be buying it with that development right underneath it. But the folks that bought up at Hawks Ridge also should have realized that they were living very close to a commercial zone. I mean, there's no secret that Bridgeport Avenue is our commercial area. So I don't have any issues with the development itself. I also don't think that there's going to be any parking issues, especially knowing what hotel occupancy rates are, that there's a lot of shared parking. But I do wonder if we want to consider having some sort of area set aside as a future, if needed, area for parking in that no build zone. So just something to consider.
No, it's on the bottom.
No,
at the bottom.
the
Oh,
no
okay.
build zone is
by
an
the
area
road there.
closer
Yes.
to
Yeah,
Longville
yeah.
Crossroads. So just a thought that, it wouldn't be developed at this point, but if needed, it could be turned in if it becomes a, situation that we had when we had that.
The restaurant, which.
Yeah, the name just keeps escaping me. It's been a while. So just a thought to consider.
Are you saying they withdrew the townhouses?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't
the
know.
property line went from along the driveway
Yeah.
up
So
on
that
top,
happened.
down.
They moved the
Property line
that
down to
out
where
of
the
the
wall is.
PDD proposal.
Still in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, still all I think.
Sure.
Go ahead, Commissioner Cristiano.
So again, looking at this project, we've looked at, it's taken the commission quite some time. And again, I appreciate the effort of Attorney Thomas and the attorney for Hawks Ridge on the efforts they've taken to the commission in some degree of a resolution. I agree with leaving the upper pad as a separate parcel. Whatever comes in, we'll have to look at that at that point. I think the Hawks Ridge residents came out and spoke very clearly, but I think there is a piece there that they have to understand, a reality that they have to understand, that they did move into an area that overlooked two very large light industrial pieces of property in Bridgeport Avenue. There is a high likelihood when they purchased their property that those areas would be developed at some point in time. That point came when someone purchased the property, and we have to balance that out. And I think we did. Attorney Thomas and the applicant made concessions by reducing the amount of buildings there. Although I do feel that there is some degree of congestion with the parking. I think we'll see a balance there with the hotel and the capacity in the end, and I hope that's what it comes to. I think the connection into Crown Point, the vehicular connection to Crown Point, will aid in the traffic and the parking also.
Okay. I had, my only concern is the retail building. as being something that is, the footprint of it being a little bit too long. I would definitely agree that the proposal is a good overall layout and intended tenants with a hotel and the restaurant and the Dairy Queen. It's the only concern I have is for that retail area that's further down in the middle of the pad. I'm going to ask Trinity Titoso to relay what happened at WPCA that might have some bearing on this.
I was not at the WPCA meeting, but I called the administrator this afternoon to ask him what approvals, if any, had been had with regard to this project. He said only the proposal to move the major sewer line had come before them and was approved. There's no other action on the units themselves.
So there's nothing hindering the project if approved from going forward. There's,
Well, we don't know that.
I don't know that.
Okay.
They only applied to move the pipe.
oh, okay, all right. So would the three crossings over the brook, whatever water feature that they're calling that, I think it's something that they have to worry about. Yeah,
In the
that's in the
wetlands.
wetland. So what was the status of that? Do you recall it all? Okay,
Any approval would be contingent.
yes,
Their approval.
It's a pending application.
okay. Ms. Castro, what did you want to say?
It's a pending application
In the wetlands is a pending application. When's your next meeting?
next month.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Go ahead. So, moving the sewage pipe. Moving the sewage pipe. What is the variance on each side of the pipe? Do they go to the center and then what is it, 10 foot on each side? Do you know?
I do not know. I do not know how they've proposed to move it.
No, well, I mean, after the move, if they have to fix it or something, don't they have a?
Are you talking about an easement?
I'm sorry, an easement, yes.
The easement is, it's given by the developer to the city. I think that they're at least 10 feet, and sometimes if the pipe is larger, you need a larger easement area.
Okay, so that reduces the construction sites right there.
Yeah. I mean, you build on an easement area at your own risk because.
Well, that's true.
If I recall, it's that upper pad is gonna be tiered. And the easement is a tier itself from the presentations.
Oh.
Or stepped or tiered, whatever you want to call it.
Terraced?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
For everybody, we're mixing words.
Commissioner Mata, you mentioned about just the residential portion, but is there anything that you wanted to comment about the project itself with the hotel and the?
No, without anything being built up there, plenty dense. Yeah, like.
Right, but is there any concerns that you have about the hotel?
No.
No, okay, all that, all right.
Chairwoman, this is Commissioner Ticky. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned that I might have been muffled before, so I just want to make sure my point wasn't misunderstood. So I was referencing Commissioner Mattow's earlier comment that the upper portion where there was earlier residential that I would like to see that remain open. I wasn't referring to the entire parcel, the entire development that we're seeing. But in case I wasn't heard the first time, that I think the applicant really did work well with the residents' opinions that they came forward with and making for a better development overall.
Okay, very good. All right, well, we've all had a chance to make our comments and
Just curious what everyone else thought about reserving some parking in the event that it becomes an issue. In that, in the
Wouldn't
no
they have to
build.
come back?
In a no
Wouldn't
build
they have to
zone.
come back?
No, you can. have
no,
a
this,
flow,
it could be part of the resolution.
Oh, I see.
That,
If it
Yeah.
becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Just because right now it's considered a no build zone. So yeah, they would still have to come back if,
Yeah.
if they wanted to utilize it, but I just think it should be part of the record that if it becomes a problem, that area can
Consider-
be used for so
Maybe
many
they could
spots
use
or
it
something.
for.
We've done that on
use
different
those
projects.
Yes, we have.
concrete blocks.
Yeah, they do pavers kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather
Open
than-
space.
rather
Yeah, I think
Grass.
that would be a good idea.
Mhm. Okay.
But they can just leave it green as well. It can just, it'd be green space. It doesn't even have to be paved,
Mhm.
Right.
right? It can just be
But
green
it could
space,
be
but
not-
That would be,
I just wanted to clarify because it's considered a no-build zone. I
yeah.
don't want anybody to come back and say, you approved this as a no-build zone and now they want to
Mhm.
pave
No,
it,
right,
right?
exactly.
So I think it should be.
It'd be
resolution
earmarked for future parking if
If
necessary.
necessary.
Yeah, okay.
Not for additional building, but
No.
for additional parking.
Mhm. Okay. All right, well, unless I'm mistaken, it seems that there's a consensus of the commission to approve this particular application, so I will be directing staff to have a favorable resolution prepared for action at an upcoming meeting. Okay? All right, our next agenda item is the public portion, and our administrator is out of the room right now, so we're gonna take a short recess until she comes back, because she's the one that checks to see if there's anyone. Okay. We're at the public portion.
No one has their hand raised.
We're at the public portion, so we need to know. All right, so our next agenda item is the public portion. If there's any elected official present in the auditorium, and there is not, we will not have any comments from anyone here in the auditorium. On an item not on the agenda, if you are an elected official participating remotely, you would like to comment on any item not on the agenda, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9 on your phone. And is there anyone indicating that from an elected official? Okay, if there's any member of the public, there are none here in the auditorium that I would think would want to comment on something not on the agenda. So if there's any member of the public that's participating remotely or would like to address the commission, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9.
No one showing.
Okay.
Nobody in the bus.
Okay.
In the box.
All right, so there's no one here from the public, and next item on the agenda is moving into an executive session. So to discuss a pending legal matter for 801 Bridgeport Avenue. Is there a motion to go into executive session, inviting Attorney Teodoso to attend? Motion to do so from Commissioner Kelly. Is there a second? And there's a second from Commissioner Parkins. And so on the motion to go into executive session, Commissioner Kelly? Commissioner Parkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Amato? Aye. Commissioner Tiki?
Aye.
Commissioner Cristiano?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Motion to go into executive session is passed by a vote of 6-0. And so we will adjourn and move into
Well,
And
they can
submit
have
an
internal
application.
regulations. I talk, I
We're back.
think that there should be
We're
internal
back.
regulations.
Okay.
that Say we should have a 40.
Is there a motion to come out of our executive session with the notation that no votes were taken?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion from Commissioner Parkins, and there's a second from Commissioner Kelly. So on the motion, Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Amato?
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki?
Aye.
Commissioner Cristiano?
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion is passed by a vote of 6-0. And seeing that there is no other item on the agenda, the chair declares this evening's meeting is adjourned as of 9:29 p.m.